Chapter 1. The door opened. It closed. Paige didn't open her eyes or sit up. She remained sprawled, her feet defiantly planted on her supervisor's desk. A random analyst had been sent to pick her up at the airport and bring her straight into CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, where she'd been escorted directly to Daniels's office. She had been waiting as patiently as she knew how for over an hour. He could wait a damn minute for her. Strong fingers wrapped around her ankle a second prior to her feet being shoved off the edge of the antique workspace. Paige bolted upright. "Good, you're awake." Daniels placed a folder on his desk and sat, his expression composed. Paige heard a hint of irritation under his polite tone, punctuated by the unnecessary snap of the folder against soft leather. "I trust your flight was uneventful?" "My flight was 8 hours long, across 6 time zones. I haven't slept in 2 days, and you had me brought here." Paige waved her arm. "Instead of home, immediately following a mission you pulled me from vacation to execute. Honestly, I'm grumpy. I want to shower, eat, and sleep. Why have I been summoned like an errant child to the principal's office?" He clasped his hands as though in prayer, pursed his lips, and considered her over steepled fingers, with an expression that, ironically, reminded her of her elementary school principal. "Gregor Kovac." "Gray? What about him?" Paige ran her fingers through her short honey-blonde hair, grimacing. It had matted to her head. She usually wore it in sassy spikes, but she had fled Dublin in disguise, and had not dared remove the long red wig until in the back seat of the company car. She slumped, weary. "He's an asset of yours, correct?" Daniels pressed. "Yes. He's familiar with the Diana Alexandra Pruest identity. Alex to her friends, which I consider him." At Daniels's raised brow, Paige sighed and continued. "Gray is a first-class financier, the best in Eastern Europe, which is a fancy way of saying he launders money for the richest and most dangerous criminals. But you know all of this. Why are you asking me about Gray?" "He embezzled a great deal of money from one of his clients, Dmitry Vladin." "The Dmitry Vladin?" Paige sat up in the chair. "Yes." Vladin controlled a large, deadly criminal empire in Eastern Europe, rumored to have once been an interrogator in the former USSR's Committee for State Security, an agency commonly referred to as the KGB. His cruelty was legendary. His friends were known to fear him as much as, if not more than, his foes. He was organized crime in that part of the world. "Gray is a connoisseur of the finer things in life, music, food, art, women, and fashion, and is about as brave as a field mouse. He wouldn't steal from one of Vladin's underlings, let alone of the big man himself. Gray simply doesn't have the balls." She shook her head. "I don't believe it." "Whether you do or not is inconsequential, as Vladin believes it and has put a hefty contract out on Kovac, who was reportedly last seen near Prague." He pushed the folder toward the edge of the desk. "Your flight leaves in less than 3 hours. You'll have to sleep on the plane." As she rose, Paige took the folder and tucked it in her bag. "Sir, has there been any word on Fitzpatrick since I left Dublin?" "No." Daniel's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room dropped. "Don't be mistaken. There will be a thorough debriefing regarding your last mission when there is time. Be sure to fill out and file your report before you leave for Prague. Dismissed." Paige stepped off the elevator on the penthouse floor of the Alchemist Hotel in central Prague and removed the silencer from the pocket of her windbreaker. She screwed it to the nose of her Glock as she approached the suite. She held the gun down behind her thigh and rapped her knuckles against the door. It swung open. She stiffened, then relaxed. She was struck, not for the first time, by Gray's sex appeal. He was in his 40s. She knew the exact date of his birth. He lied about it, and except for the gray at his temples, he could pass for 10 years younger. His thick brown hair fell over his forehead in a casual sweep that drew her focus to his chestnut eyes, shining with surprised delight, and framed by dark lashes and laugh lines. His lips, caught in a square jaw that never looked unkind, spread into an easy smile. He wore one of the hotel robes and pajama bottoms that barely rode his hips, courtesy of the loosely tied drawstrings. His trim, muscled torso under the smattering of chest hair caused a flare of desire, quickly followed by annoyed concern. He'd opened the door without hesitation. She sensed no fear. "Alex, darling, it's wonderful to see you. What is your fantastic ass doing here?" He kissed her firmly on the mouth before stepping far enough aside to let her pass. His English was perfect, having been schooled in London, but his accent was lyrical and spoke of his Chechen heritage. Paige surveyed the room. "Are you alone?"
"Yes."
Gray hesitated, his eyes narrowing.
"What is this? Are you in trouble? Is that why you're dressed like one of those vulgar American tourists?"
He held up a hand.
"Which doesn't mean the look isn't sexy on you, because it is. Regardless, love, I can't have trouble."
"I'm here to help you, Gray, and only have a few minutes. I came to the party late, but I'm here first because I knew exactly where to start looking. This is the shittiest hiding spot ever. And checked in under a known alias? I thought you were smarter than that. Don't bother packing anything. Get dressed."
"I do not understand most of what you said. And what happened to your accent?"
"We don't have time for games. I have to assume there are men on their way here as we speak. Now get dressed."
"You have men following you and you led them here?"
His tone, his body language, everything about him suggested he had no idea he was in imminent danger. Paige didn't have time to explain. She swung her right arm around, bringing the firearm into view. "I don't have time to explain it to you now, but I will. All you need to know is that I'm here to keep you alive. Trust me and do everything I say. Now get dressed. I won't tell you again." He didn't move. She shifted her arm to the left and fired off a round into the priceless chiffre robe that stood behind him. She stifled a chuckle when he jumped. Following him, she entered the large master bedroom. As he dressed, she removed the batteries from his laptop and BlackBerry and shoved them into her knapsack. No power meant there would be no signal to track, but she had to take them with her. The technology department at Langley was waiting to mine the hard drives for intelligence. The elevator pinged in the distance, and Paige looked to Gray. "Is anyone in the other suite?"
"No,"
he pouted. She turned and gestured with the gun for him to follow. She ignored his sigh as she moved through the elegant rooms and opened a discreetly marked door far in the rear that led into a short hallway. There were no paintings or objets d'art, only a dumbwaiter, laundry chute, a bag filled with garbage, 2 other doors, and the service elevator.
"Ha, I did not realize this was here."
"Of course you didn't." Paige ignored the elevator and opened the door to the interior fire escape. She put a finger to her lips before checking above and below. Confident they were alone in the stairwell, she glanced down at her sneakers before rolling her eyes at his loafers. He'd tap the whole way. "Take them off. Don't speak unless you have to, and do it in a whisper. Stay in front of me, move fast, and stay away from the outside banister. I mean it, Gray. Hug the fucking wall." He looked ready to argue, but for some reason he held his tongue. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. Paige thought maybe he was finally taking the situation, and her, seriously. He bent and removed his shoes. Paige waited until he started down the stairs with one hand on the inside railing, his loafers dangling from the other. Satisfied he finally obeyed, she started after him. They were on the first landing when the door they'd exited opened above them. Paige tapped his shoulder, shook her head, and placed a finger over her lips. They waited silently against the wall. Adrenaline pumped through her veins. Almost as good as sex. Almost. Someone stepped out and the door slapped shut. A walkie chirped, and a man's clipped, angry voice echoed in Russian throughout the stairwell.
"Stairs are clear."
A second voice, also speaking in Russian, answered.
"He is here. Check the suite again."
The door opened and closed. Paige tapped Gray's shoulder with the tip of her pistol. He didn't move. She laid a hand on his shoulder. He shook under her palm.
What have you done?
He turned accusing eyes on her. Not a damn thing. I told you, I'm here to help. It's what you did to Dmitri Vladin that has those guys tearing apart this hotel. His eyes widened in recognition and held the fear they'd lacked before. Oh, that makes sense, does it?
My phone. I need my phone.
Gray pulled at the strap of Paige's knapsack, trying to pry it from her shoulder. She slapped his hands. Forget it. I don't know if they're tracking your electronics or if they have that capability, but if it were me, I would.
I am expecting someone, Alex. A friend, here, at the hotel.
He paused.
In my suite.
Jesus fucking Christ, Gregor, you weren't hiding. You were arranging a tryst.
She'll walk right into an ambush. We have to go back. They'll kill her.
We go back up, they kill her and us. I'm sorry. Paige experienced twinges of guilt and sorrow. She quashed them. Pointing at the stairs with the gun, she said, We've been in one spot too long. Move.
Let me warn her.
His quiet plea as he continued down the stairs moved her. Unbidden, an image of Ian on the ground, bleeding, filled her vision. Paige reached into her pocket and pulled out the burner she'd picked up at the airport. She tapped his shoulder with it, knowing it was a mistake.
Thank you.
He dialed from memory and whispered into the phone, speaking in Russian, not wasting time on greetings or explanations.
The hotel is not safe, my love. I'll be in touch.
He hung up without waiting for a response. Paige was grateful that he was wise enough to have kept it short. The door above them opened again. Gregor dropped the phone. It bounced off the step, fell through the railing, and shattered in the darkness. The man above them broke into a run. Move, she shouted in Gray's stunned face. He reacted as she'd hoped and bolted down the stairs. Paige was right on his heels. They didn't have far to go. The Alchemist wasn't a tall hotel, but that meant the man pursuing them would have more than a fair chance at catching up. The fire stairs led into the kitchen. Paige could see the door as they approached. She pictured the room on the other side and calculated how long their backs would be exposed as they ran to the street exit. Go through that door, Gray, and take cover. I mean it. He wrenched it open. Paige barely had enough time to slide through before the door slammed. Home. The setup was as she remembered. They were in the back of the kitchen, where supplies were kept and there was little traffic. She ran about 12 feet into the room before pivoting. She sat on the floor and raised her pistol. Paige hoped Gray had done as he'd been told. The man chasing them came through the door, his gun and his gaze at shoulder height. From below his line of fire and without hesitation, Paige put 2 bullets in his heart. His body fell into the stairwell, propping the door open. Paige stood. She mechanically collected her empty casings while scanning the area. Gray? He stood up from between 2 shelving units where he'd crouched. His arms were held out in front of him, his loafers hanging from his fingertips. You can put those back on. The kitchen in any successful hotel was as busy and noisy as that of a 5-star restaurant in New York City. Paige didn't doubt the subtle sound of her gun discharging went unnoticed. She hid the gun under her jacket before moving further into the kitchen. Gray fell into step beside her, and she linked her free arm through his in attempted nonchalance. She knew that if you held yourself with the confidence of someone who expected not to be questioned, more often than not, you weren't disturbed. They had, at best, a few minutes before the body was discovered, and that's only if Dead Doe back there hadn't called in his position. There were sure to be more men searching the hotel. She quickened her pace and whined as they passed a cook. Oh yes, dear, you clearly know where you're going. They were within feet of the exit leading to a back street used for deliveries when a woman's scream pierced the din of the active kitchen. Paige sprinted for the door, pulling Gray with her. She slid a pipe through the handle, temporarily sealing the door, and jogged to the motorcycle she'd parked in a narrow space. She handed him the backpack and a helmet. Here. You killed that man. Paige looked at him. She didn't like his color. It was him or us. If you're going to hurl, do it before you get on the back of this bike. If you throw up on me, I swear to God, I'll shoot you my damn self. He shook his head, pressed his lips together, and jammed the helmet over his ears hard enough it must have hurt. His wince suggested it had. She nodded before strapping on her own helmet and straddling the bike. She started the ignition. He secured the pack. She saw 2 men turn the corner in her rearview mirror as Gray got settled behind her. "Hold on to me, they're coming." The bike roared to life. Shots boomed and echoed between the buildings. Paige accelerated as she sped onto Trijsti. The bike darted between a bus and a sedan. Horns blared. Gray's hold on Paige threatened to cut off her oxygen as she weaved through traffic. "Too tight, can't breathe," she shouted. His hold didn't loosen. "I pass out, we crash, dumbass." He relaxed his arms. Paige chuckled. They were several blocks from the hotel, nearly a mile, and she risked a look back. She didn't think they were being followed. Their pursuers hadn't had a chance in that sedan. She preferred the maneuverability and speed of the motorcycle for navigating Prague's heavy traffic and skinny serpentine roadways. She decelerated and joined the natural flow of traffic. She felt warmth in her crotch. Gray's hand cupped her pussy. "What the hell are you doing?" "It's comforting." Paige laughed at his indignant response. The adrenaline abated, but danger inspired lust, and Gray's palm on her sex thrilled her. The bike hummed as they rode toward a more densely populated, impoverished section of Prague.